Welcome back, guys. Today we're back on the Cappuccino. We're going to put the gearbox on the engine and we're going to throw it in the car. Let's get into it. Sometimes when you're removing rear main seals, they can be pretty tricky. I try and use a pry bar or something similar that doesn't have a real sharp edge on the back side of it. I normally just push them in the seal in the lip face and pry. This one's come out really easily. I think it's actually a non-genuine seal looking at it. Manufacturers do weird things sometimes, and you might find that the OD of the seal is half a mil bigger than a commercially available seal, or they have weird sizing. So I have been caught out in the past where an aftermarket supplier will match something up and it's been slightly out. So for that reason, we always recommend to use genuine parts for crucial oil seals and gaskets and stuff like that. We'll chuck our genuine rear main seal in, and then we can put our backing plate and clutch and flywheel on. This particular model, you've got to make sure that it's flush with the back edge of the seal face. Just make sure you check out how it was installed previously, and if you've got any queries at all, jump online. Most manufacturers these days have got online reference material like workshop manuals or how-to guides, or jump on forums. They're still a thing. Most cars have forums, so I know there's definitely still a Cappuccino forum, still the RS Liberty Club forums. There's a lot of make-specific or even chassis-specific forums still out there, so Facebook's doing their best to kill them off, but we'll see how long we can drag them out. While this may look unconventional to have the crank facing down sitting on a trolley with the gearbox hanging out the top, for this particular application we don't have a clutch alignment tool. So we've assembled the clutch loosely without any weight on it, being that it's now horizontal. And we've used the transmission itself as a clutch aligning tool. Because this box is so light, you can literally pick the whole thing up. It's easy to sort of move it around. So now we've got our clutch perfectly centered. We'll tighten up the bolts and continue to put it back together. Got our engine and transmission completely assembled now. Clutch is in, everything's bolted up, tightened up together. We've got our starter motor on. We've also added our starter and charging loom. We will fit that in the car. It's a lot easier to just put two connectors onto the car side rather than try and connect all this stuff, because it's actually quite low in the engine once it's in the car. At this stage, the plan is to just drop the subframe out, just subframe control arms in the rack, and leave everything else in the car. Then we'll fit the engine transmission into that subframe, and then we'll put it back on a different trolley and we'll lift it up under the car, and then we'll be able to bolt it all back in rather than trying to fiddle around for hours on end from the top. So have a crack at fitting it a different way, and hopefully it saves a bit of time. Should put my coilovers in while we're here. Now that we've got the wheels off, I've had a quick look at the front end geometry, and it's actually a little bit different to what I'd anticipated. So looking at it now, the upper and the lower control arms are actually all bolted to that front subframe. So the easiest option from now is actually just going to be to unbolt the brake calipers and hang those under the car. So then it means we don't have to bleed the brakes. But what that actually means is we don't have to undo any of the steering at all other than the steering knuckle that goes to the column. So once we undo the knuckle, and we will mark that as well, because then it means your steering wheel is still centered. So once we mark and undo that knuckle, we've only got about 6 or 8 bolts to drop the whole subframe down, and then the whole thing's out of the car. So yeah, it's going to be a lot simpler to just drop it all out. time has come. We are now going to put our engine, transmission, driveline, subframe combo back into the car. But while we're here, we're taking the opportunity to upgrade our current worn out shocks. We got some secondhand coilovers from Japan. We actually source those ourselves. It's something we do also on the side as well as make videos, so if you need stuff, hit us up. But yeah, long story short, we're already having to pull the shocks out of the front just to pull this out anyway, so we thought rather than do that as a separate job later, we'll just combine that now, and then while we're here, we'll just chuck the rear stuff in. So we're going to put the new coilovers into the subframe, then we're going to lift the whole thing into the car. Well, actually, we're going to put the car on top of this, and then once all the front end's buttoned up, we'll then do the rear coilovers a bit later this Savo. So this is a little trick that we worked out doing another car previously. We're using this ratchet strap to actually pull the subframe into its rightful position. So we're going to actually hook the front and rear subframes together and slowly winch them together just using this ratchet strap. So simple little tip that can minimise the hours and hours of pain trying to get bolts into subframes. This is our lower radiator hose unit. It's got 2 rubber sections and the steel intermediate section. It's also got a couple of smaller hoses, a 3/8 hose and a 5/16 hose coming off it. All of the smaller hoses are pretty worn out. Unfortunately, they're really hard to come by in Australia, so we get these generic Z hoses. They're pretty good. You can bend them in all sorts of weird shapes, or you can just cut the bends out of them. This Z hose is fairly close to the original hose we've got anyway, so we're going to cut this down and use it in place of that. We've done a lot of the other hoses on the engine in the same way. We didn't film all of it because it's pretty tedious watching hoses go on an engine. But yeah, we started out with these Z hoses and cut a lot of bends out of them. They're pretty cheap too. Like, that's normally under about $10 in most part shops. As I said, we've got 5/16 ones, which is this size. Then this is a 3/8 one, so it's a little bit bigger. So that's basically 10mm metric, and that's 8mm metric, close enough to anyway. So that'll get most of those hoses done, and we've basically replaced every hose in this except for these larger radiator hoses, which aren't that old anyway. This is the last hose clamp. Then all we got to do is put some oil and water in it, and we'll give it a start. The moment of truth, the first start. This is legit first start. No, we're not faking anything here. So we'll see what happens. Sounds all right. It's just noisy top end because there's no oil in the head yet. Don't have any leaks so far. What's the smoke, Benny? The smoke's just burn off just from like oil on our hands when we've been assembling it, and probably WD-40 and spray lube and stuff that we've used on it. So yeah, it's just like burning off oil. That's pretty normal with an engine that you've freshly assembled. The ticking noise is slowly going away. It's just getting all the oil into the head now, and the lifters are starting to free up. Coolant temp looks good. No check engine light. Pretty happy with all of that. We'll keep chopping away and chuck it up in the air and check for coolant leaks and oil leaks. Had a really successful day on our Cappuccino. We actually got more done than we'd planned. In addition to fitting the motor and the gearbox back into the car, we actually fitted the coilovers and our new wheels. Stay tuned for the next episode where you'll see a road test and a reveal of the new look. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.